Hello, MotoAmerica fans. I'm Paul Carruthers, the communications manager for MotoAmerica. I'm joined by content manager Sean Bice, who's my partner on our weekly podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. And today it's Off Track with Carruthers and Bice and Ventura, as in Cory Ventura. Cory's been with us for a long time, since he was a kid racing KTM RC Cup, and was on the cusp of great things, I thought. Um, Results were coming in, everything seemed really good until the moment then it wasn't. And that was at Barber in what, 2023?
Yeah.
Badly broken leg. I think you've had 5 surgeries. Why don't you just start this by catching us up on, first of all, like, are you back to normal? Are you still recuperating? Just fill us in on what's happened with Cory since that accident.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you guys or really talked to you guys or really talked about this. But leg is now finally back to, I would say, 95% of before the injury. There's still a little bit of nerve damage, some tingling stuff there. But it is almost as strong as my right, or it is just as strong as my right leg. It's more stable now because we worked on my left leg for a year and a half with physical therapy. But man, it has been a road to get here. Within the first 6 months after the injury, like we got through everything. Everything was looking good. And then we were trying to figure out a program for 2024 and went to the doc and he said, "Hey, MRI results said that the bone's not healing. It's actually growing outwards instead of inwards and getting more dense. So we're going to go in there and we're going to rip everything out. We're going to put a cadaver bone in and completely change up the program." So that put me back another 3, 4 months after that. And since then, I've just been slowly grinding away, getting back to my daily life, doing the things I love.
Mm. Are you trying to do all this to just have a normal life, or are you trying to do all this to get back on a racing motorcycle?
If I'm being honest, like right after the incident happened, I was like, I don't think I could ever ride a motorcycle again. Like I'm kind of over it. I went through multiple different injuries within that calendar year. Just kind of a lot going on with life. All in that time, I'm a young adult trying to figure it out, and I was like, I think it's time to hang up the boots. Now I'm I can't say the same thing. I want it bad. I don't need motorcycles in my life, but man, if I can tell you guys anything, I want to be back here and I want to be back racing again.
Wow. Well, good for
That's
you.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've really seen it all, Cory, with this injury. I mean, and this seems to be. I've named some people, Andy DeBrino or Sam Lockoff, some people who've had issues like this. Where I think even at one time, Anthony Mazziato had an injury that took a long time to heal too. These bones that just don't come together like they're supposed to. I don't know if that's just something that's always been that way, and now that there's more diagnostics, you can see that, or you're just trying to rush it more than normal, or I mean, it obviously took longer than it should have, right?
Yeah, like it. What was crazy was like just to get into specifics a little bit. I broke the tib fib. It was a compound tib fib. I had some metatarsal issues as well, but like I would say tib was healed within 4 months and I could get back to impact. The fib is where we had our the majority of our issues. Foot went together pretty quick as well. Just the complications of the bone not healing was where I ran into the biggest issue, where we had the setbacks. But if everything went to plan, like the goal was to come back, I want to say around Coda. And I mean, it would have been a big push and it would have been hard. And I probably would not have been fit or as strong as I should have been. But if everything would have gone the way it should have, that would have been the ideal.
Yeah, and tell us about the tib fib. I never am sure about this. It's two bones in your lower leg. One's behind the other. Which is the bigger one? Which is the smaller one?
The tibia is the bigger one. The fib is the smaller one, the
A-
fibula.
Okay, and the fibula is the one you had more of an issue with.
Yep.
Oh.
So we had quite a few different complications. Originally, right when I broke my leg, they rushed me to the hospital, and I was in surgery the next day. The doctor I had at oh my gosh, the hospital we went to in Alabama, I think it was UAB.
Hmm.
The doctor that originally put my leg on, yeah, put my leg kind of back
Back
together, I
together.
should say, kind of just threw it together, put two pins in the tib, two pins in the top of the tib, two pins in the bottom of the tib, and he's like, well, the fibula is almost non-existent and the lower half of my leg, and he's like, you're going to kind of walk with a limp the rest of your life. And my girlfriend, who's an ICU nurse, she was like, what? He's a professional athlete. And he's like, well, looks like you're finding a new hobby or a new career.
Oh God.
And we were like,
Get me
well,
out of here.
yeah, exactly. So we made the trek across the country, to home, which is Kansas City. The original plan was to go all the way to California. I've done numerous surgeries with Doc Brian, and he's been extremely good to me. And that was the goal. I needed to make it back to Doc Brian. And after 12-hour car ride straight through to Kansas City, I was like, I can't do it anymore. There's no way I can make it another 24 hours in the car after that. So I was like, I'm going to have to find somebody here and kind of set some roots here.
And
Was it
that worked
what?
out.
Yeah, I couldn't ask for a better team. I mean, like, through our complications, we just trucked through it. I mean, they had a great game plan, and I'm, like I said, I'm happy with being back. I almost all the way. We had a lot of nerve issues after that first surgery. At first, we I could not feel anything in my leg. I had a lot of knee issues, because they dislocate the kneecap, when they put the rod through the tib and the two pins. So at first, like, my knee was all weird, and they I think they nicked a couple nerves at the top of the back of my knee, and everything's there. Not everything, there's a couple things that are still fuzzy, but at first, like, we did an EMG, where they try and see if they can get the nerves to react, and it was completely radio silent, and that was extremely nerve-wracking. I was just like, well, here we go. And we ended up figuring out that when they put my leg back together, they didn't align it straight. So my right leg was or my left foot was about 5 degrees inward of where it should have been, and the tib, the rod that they put in my tib was too long, so it stretched the nerves out. So
Oh,
we got that corrected, and once it was all kind of put back together, everything kind of fell back into place from there. And with PT, it started moving really quickly.
that's a lot to go through. I mean, and like Paul alluded to, it to have a normal life, but I think, and I could be wrong, you tell us, Cory. I think I've heard of people that have been able to live without a fibula, but not a tibia. Well, I mean, I don't mean live. You know what I mean? Being able to ambulate. Of course, you'll live if it's lower extremities. But some people don't have a fibula, because it's the tibia that's the support part. But you needed more than that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and like, we wanted to just give me the best shot of full recovery. The fibula, from what I understand, holds up about 20% of
Oh,
your left leg support. But the more important part about the fibula is balance. It gives you that extra support, and rotation when you're moving your leg around, and that's why my doctor was like, we need this if we want to come back to racing and you have a normal life, and we want to make this happen, and we had all the tools available. Might as well try.
Yeah. So we've seen, I mean, we've seen situations, I mean, Paul and I remember back when Miguel Duhamel injured his leg so bad. I mean, showed up at Daytona and, couldn't walk very well, but he ended up being able to ride. So with your situation, how did it limit you from being able to ride in the things you did? Could you not hang off the bike? Could you not pivot on the bike? What were the issues that you would be having that would prevent you from racing at the top of your game?
I would say the biggest thing for me was getting my ankle control back to where it should have been. But from support wise, or from a racing standpoint, I could have jumped back in. It was not advised. They did not recommend. They did not want me to come back to racing until we got this all figured out. And I was like, hey, like I got to make it happen. And they convinced me to just kind of slow everything down. Luckily with Disrupt, the team I was on, they were 100% behind me and just getting back to full recovery instead of going back out there and possibly re-injuring or making it worse. Because I still was a little bit brittle in some areas, but you know how it is. Anything can happen when we're out there. If I throw a leg dangle out there and someone runs my leg over, and with already having the issue with my leg twisting, any variable could have made it worse.
So if you are, I feel like you're planning on coming back. Is that something that starts with doing some local club races or riding some, I wouldn't say motocross would be a good idea, but some flat track or something? Or do you just dive back into MotoAmerica?
So my plan, it's already kind of in motion. My goal was at the end of 2024, I wanted to get out and do some club racing and just have some fun. I ended up actually buying like a little Ninja 300, and we're just going to go race some local CMRA stuff, go have some fun. I'm all about just having fun and getting back to loving the sport and for what it is, and give me those same old feels back from my earlier days, and kind of take some pressure off. That did not quite happen, but we're planning on racing. I think there's a race here in February, later on in that month. And I want to go do that, but I also have one of the Disrupt 750s sitting in my garage, and I think we're going to pull that thing out, pull the cover off of it, and we're going to go and try and put some laps in and see where I sit exactly before the season starts. But I'm definitely trying to get the word out that I want to come back and I'm ready to go racing. Worked really hard on my fitness. I mean, I've had a long time to sit around on the couch, and man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I want it.
Yeah.
So I would believe that going into something like this, the physical part would be one thing, the mental part would be another. But the fact that how you talk about it and how bad you want to come back and how bad you want to do it again, it seems like the mental part's kind of taking care of itself. But is that the case?
I feel like throughout my years, or at least the time I've had to sit on the couch, I've got to think about it and just learning from experience. And luckily I have a lot of good people still in my corner. Josh has been a huge part of my recovery as well. I talked to Josh Hayes on the phone probably once a month, and he's been a huge part of this. But him and I both have talked a lot about having nightmares of, we're racing at the top of our level or doing the best we can, and one day just waking up forgetting how to do it. And that's never been there. I haven't ridden a road race bike in 2 years, or we're coming up on 2 years in May. I haven't raced for really 2 seasons. But I think you got the same feels, show up to the track, and it's funny. I was at the races this year. I was working with MotoAmerica, doing some registration, some other things. And at first, I was like, man, feels like it was a whole different life. As the season went on, I'm sitting there and timing and scoring, yelling at the iPad, watching everyone doing their thing. I'm like, what are you doing? What? Got to make the move. Got to be there. Like, and it all just comes back. The blood's flowing, and it's there. Racing's there.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple things on this. So you mentioned your girlfriend, who is Hannah Stockton, who raced with in Royal Enfield Build Train Race for a while and is still in our paddock. She works with Dr. Carl Price. She's a healthcare professional. And you this year, and maybe some of last year, but you alluded to it. You were like Forrest Gump in the paddock this past year. I mean, you go into the registration area and there's Cory Ventura, or is that Cory Ventura's twin brother? I don't know, but he's helping everybody in there. All the ladies in there, well, I'm going to say Twitter pated by the fact that Cory does such a good job and he's a cute kid and all this. So he did a great job with that. The next thing we know, he's down. We're up in the media center and I look down there and there's Cory Ventura walking up and down the front straight. And I'm like, what's he doing? And it was timing and scoring, like you said. So you got this rare experience to be, to work on that side of the equation in the MotoAmerica paddock. And I guess it wasn't really, maybe it was torture for you. I don't know. I mean, it'd be hard to be that close to it and not be able to race. And like you said, watching the screen and timing and scoring and still wanting, kind of making the moves with the rider and everything like that. But you kept yourself in the window. That's probably part of it too, right? In terms of people see you're there, see you're walking healthy, and you're a rider. So was that all part of that motive, or is it just you're a MotoAmerica person, you're part of the family, you needed to be part, stay with it?
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, at first the motive was not there. I love being around the paddock, obviously friends, family, and I have such a huge passion for road racing. And if there's any way I can help it or be a part of it, just I have to be there. I can't stay away from it. And as the time went on, I was like, maybe I can use this to my advantage a little bit. And I'm here in the paddock, seeing the same faces, and all right, I want to be here. I want to do this. And so the motive did switch a little bit. I want to say halfway through the season, and I want to say, like, at the start of the year, I wanted to work into a role where I can build into something, maybe possibly like a race director down the line, something like that. And just, I feel like I have enough experience and a general idea of how we can possibly take our industry and improve on it. And just as a racer trying to help racers. And I don't know how much I can help, but if there's anything I can do, I'd love to be there and to offer or whatever. But like I said, the motive did switch, and I'm ready to jump back on the bike and put a helmet on.
Now, how old are you? 23, 24?
I almost said 16. I'm 22. I'm going to be 23 at the end of February.
Yeah, and Josh Hayes didn't even know what a motorcycle was when he was 22. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, it's not, you've got time if you want to do this, and by all means, I think you should take your time, by the way, speaking like a father, but I don't want to see you rush into anything either that you're not comfortable with, but you do have time on your side.
Exactly. And like, I to that point, I mean, you see Josh Hayes out there. I mean, I think he's going to be 50 this year, and he's lived a long career, and he's still out there doing his thing. And I think if he comes back to racing this year, he'll win some more races. But man, through everything he's been through, taking care of his body, if I can do the same thing, maybe I could have a career along the same trajectory.
Yeah, so you mentioned you still have, well, I guess it's a Suzuki GSXR 750 that you had when you were with Disrupt Racing, who is Jesse Wilka. And Jesse, we didn't see much of last year. He kind of was not involved in the paddock as much either. So is there a chance of getting that band back together in any way? I mean, have you talked to Jesse? I know he still thinks the world of you.
Yeah, I work for Jesse.
Oh,
I do a lot
yes.
with his business, with Infinity Fall Protection. I actually did quite a few jobs with him this summer. Sadly, Jesse dabbled his feet back in this year a little bit. He was working in the shadows, and we talked about possibly trying to throw some stuff together for me. And again, nothing quite fell in line, and I don't want to do anything unless all the pieces are there. If we're showing up, we're there to get on the podium to win, and I mean that's a big ask. So to get there, you have to have everything be perfect. We have to have testing. We have to be in the right mental state. And to me, it's not worth showing up unless we're there at the peak and we're there to win. With that being said, Jesse has taken a step back from the road racing stuff. I mean, he still has a huge passion for it, but I think he's gonna slowly bow out of the MotoAmerica series and kind of let things work the way that they're working.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. And I get where you're coming from on that with talking to Jesse. So you were on a 750, and when last you were racing in Supersport. So your comeback, would it be in Supersport again?
I mean, I'll ride anything right now.
Yeah.
I possibly have a couple opportunities on the table. Ideally, I would like to come back to Super Sport. It's where I have been racing the last couple of years. It's where I have the majority of my experience. But I'm open to racing anything. Just having a good time. To me, for me, it's more about the program, the people that are involved in it, and we're going there to have fun. Obviously, we're there. We want to do the best we can, and results are results. But all the work is done before we even show up to the event.
Now, am I making this up or did you get your pilot's license?
No pilot's license yet, but I'm working on it. I'm
Okay.
working on it.
So that you do have a backup plan. And again, you're young enough that shit, I don't know how long it takes to become a pilot and make a living doing it, but it seems like you'd have years to do that as well.
Yeah, and I have shift gears a bit with this time off, and while rebuilding, I have been able to do my ground school, get my head in that direction. And again, I am extremely lucky with the people I have around me and the resources that we have to put me in this position. And yeah, I'm enjoying flying. I actually got up this morning and flew around for a couple hours. Worked on uh, couple little things. Landed the airplane pretty well, and I was pretty happy.
So is it the point where where one of the things you got to do is just accumulate hours, right?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I still am working on some proficiency of maintaining altitude. I like to get into the specifics of it. I struggle a little bit with maintaining altitude, which is hilarious.
I think that's I don't know what it is, but maintaining altitude probably seems like a pretty important thing to do in an airplane.
Very.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
like one of the yeah, exactly. And for me, it's not there. And then it took me way too long to get a good feel of the airplane. Like I got in there and I was like, all right, I race motorcycles. Like, how hard can this be? Well, it's pretty freaking hard, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
That whole third plane going up and down. I mean, a motorcycle, you got two directions you can go, really. So I've been enjoying figuring that out, and it's been it's been a humbling experience, but I wouldn't want it any other way. Always learning and trying to better myself and figure one thing out at a time.
Well, Sean and I are going to wait a little bit before we go up with you.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But when the time comes, we definitely want to do it. So,
I'll let you know.
it's funny too, Cory. I've never mentioned this to you, and I haven't mentioned this kid's name in years and years. But thinking about a rider who I think raced against you in KTM RC Cup, and Nick Swensgaard, who's kind of from your area. He's even further along with you than you are in flying, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's very far along. He's flying commercial stuff from what I believe. He's second in command. So
Wow.
there's pilot in command, and then he's second in command, and he's logging hours. He's actually my resource that's gotten me to where I am, given me a lot of guidance, and I'm extremely thankful to have his help. Because at first I was completely lost, just like, well, all right, like it's a completely new industry. What do I do? How do I make friends? What can I do?
Yeah, it's funny. You guys are, in many ways, in my mind, a little bit similar to back then. I mean, he really nice kid, kind of from your area, a little bit in California, I think. And but now he's super tall, isn't he? Didn't he get a lot taller?
I think he did. Since we saw him at MotoAmerica, I think like he did a little bit of racing when he was 16, 17, but I want to say he hit like a spurt when he turned 18, 19, 20. I haven't really spent a lot of time with him outside of the track or really seen
Yeah.
him much, but we text quite a bit, and he's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to flying.
Yeah, it sounds like
He was
it.
a tiny little kid too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
was,
I
yeah.
remember him. He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this kid's
Yeah.
out here.
Good kid though. I really liked him. And another one who we all are very fond of is our rider representative, Michael Martin. He's pursuing his pilot's license. I'm sure you're aware of that too, aren't you, Cory?
I'm trying to think. I think we may have talked about it in passing. I talked a lot about it too with Bill Cumbo.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I didn't
Bill
know Bill was
flew.
doing it. Wow.
Yeah, Bill flew for a lot of years. I
He was a
think he
captain
said
at
Delta,
United.
or was it United?
I think it was
Gosh,
United.
I didn't
He was
know
a,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So he also kind of gave me the rundown, and we talked a little bit about it at Coda, which was funny. We were at Coda, and the Tuesday after Coda was my first flight up. And so we just kind of got chit chatting about it, and what kind of program I was doing. I'm doing a Part 91, where it's kind of more like a homeschool approach. Whenever I can do it, I try and fly as much as I can.
Yeah, Michael's pretty involved. I'm not sure how far along he is, but he mentioned the same thing you did. I mean, a guy that had so much experience with racing, and there's just so much to being a pilot, as you'd expect. But I mean, so much the books, the thick books, the technical information, all the things you have to know, like weather and all that kind of stuff. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
right now I'm in the middle of it, and oh my gosh, if I could tell you guys, every time I get up, and my CFI, my flight instructor, he's like, "All right, so what do you know about this? What do you know about a cumulonimbus cloud?" And I'm like, "It's a fluffy thing in the sky." I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Well, that's thunderstorms, and I'm like, "Oh, well, it's not so fluffy, I guess."
Stay away from those.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's amazing how many people, Michael Martin, you mentioned Bill Cumbo, even way back to Bob Hanna or Steve Rapp, who's another one from kind of up your area too, who's pretty involved as a pilot.
Matt
What
Mladen.
and Matt Mladen, yes, yeah, good, Paul. So Cory, what is it about and a lot of guys who fly jets? I mean, the Navy's pretty fascinated. I had gotten Josh Hayes up with the Blue Angels for an event, and those guys were as fascinated with Josh as he was with the flying thing. And I know Josh is really into flying stuff as well. He doesn't fly himself, but he loves the technology and everything about flight. What is it about the two that relate?
Man, I'm not sure about what it is for everyone else, but for me, I've always been extremely interested in aviation since I was a younger child, I would say. My uncle was, I want to say he was colonel of the Baba Black Sheep, so he flew Harriers, and he's pretty high up there. So we always kind of got to see what he's doing. And I've been drawn to it ever since I heard he was doing that. And I had an opportunity to possibly pursue becoming a fighter pilot. And I was like, I think I'm going to stick to the ground, ride motorcycles. Looking back, I'm like, that was a dumb move. But hey, here we are. And I'm going to do as much as I can from here on out. But yeah, when we did my year with Josh and Melissa racing for MP13, Josh and we made our stops at all the different museums. We stopped in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
We stopped in DC at the Smithsonian, and it like I think that stuff's so cool. And anytime I can be around it and be a part, I want to be a part of it,
Yeah.
and I love it.
I remember when you guys went to the one in Dayton, and that's not real far from me. It's a couple hours. And remember, Josh called me and said you guys were going to go there, and that's cool stuff. I'm really fascinated with that. The other thing that's amazing about that is you think about during the war, the warplanes, all the P-51s and all those planes. Those young guys, the war didn't last that long. World War II, they got in there, they learned to fly and do dog fights and armament and all that stuff in a very short amount of time. I don't know how they did that. It's crazy. And they were proficient pilots too, really good. And some of them went on to be astronauts, obviously. Some of them went on to be airline pilots, and it's incredible what that did for training them.
Yeah, I kudos to them. There's no way. Like I have just under 30 hours right now, and I mean, every time I get up, I mean, there's a lot of regulations and everything has a process. Everything is so structured. But man, I can't imagine being a fighter pilot and having all of everything I have going on. And then on top of having your orders, having to do whatever you're doing, flying the plane inverted and withstanding the G forces. I mean, I feel like I kind of understand a bit of that, but at this level.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of plane do you fly in?
Right now I'm flying in like a little Piper Cherokee,
Okay.
just like a little training plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it so? I got to ask you a couple technical questions about it. Is it the one that has the wing above you or the one with the wing below you?
Wing below me.
Okay, that's to me even more of a proper airplane, I think. So, is there a difference between learning in those two planes, or is there a classification between that at all?
It depends on they're the same.
Okay.
So the Cessna, and then I'm in a Piper Cherokee. Cessna is the top wing.
Okay.
They do the same thing. They have the same characteristics. The low wing is more stable, which is the reason why my flight school went in that direction. But they all do the same things. They both have 150 horsepower engines, which blows my mind. Like my 750 is not far from that. And the fact that a little 150 horsepower engine can get me 10,000 feet in the sky is bizarre.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, somebody who else just came to mind for me, and being from Ohio, is CJ LaRoche. He's got a business it's a tree business, but he flies helicopters, but he's also got one of those planes. I don't know what it's called, but it's like those planes, those Red Bull aerobatic planes, which are crazy fast and small and really maneuverable. He flies one of those too. Do you know what those planes are? And would you like to try one of those?
I would. That's the goal, going in the sport direction. That's one of the certifications I want to grab along my way. My end goal is to get to commercial, but obviously I want to go in and do some stunts and figure out how to do all those same things.
So one more thing on this, Paul, I got to ask. Okay. You said commercial. Okay. And it's terrible for me to say this. I'm just going to say it. Whenever I fly on a plane, and I know those guys are extremely skilled, I get it. But sometimes I think about the fact that it's like they're a bus driver a little bit. So it makes me think, like, why would you want to be a commercial pilot when you could be, a single or, a smaller group of people, or maybe just yourself and somebody else, and do more sport flying like that. But obviously it's great stuff. I mean, Steve Rapp loves it. Oh, well, yeah, money. And Nick Swensgaard does it too, to your point. Is that why? Is it because there's a career in it?
I think for me, it's the career. Obviously, starting from a younger age, I've done a lot of traveling. And I mean, if I can fly somewhere, obviously there's going to be a lot of flying. But if I can stop somewhere, if I can spend a week over in France, if I can get my girlfriend to come along with me on the right flight or figure out how to get her there, spend a week in France. There's so much opportunity there. And I feel like the flying industry is so big and vast, and there's so much variety that even more people I can learn from and kind of pull together whatever I want to do next after I kind of get myself settled down in flying and give myself an opportunity at another career, give myself something else to possibly learn about.
I imagine it's the same commercial license, but to me, like if I was going to do it, I'd fly for like UPS where I wouldn't have to deal with people in the back. No, you could have more fun. You could see how many boxes you could get to move around if you just started doing weird shit. But
but you might end up on a deserted island for a few years.
There is that.
And have to knock your tooth out with an ice skate.
Yeah,
that would
but
be hard.
To me, I thought you get to fly these big planes, but you don't have to say, oh, thanks for coming. Hey, thanks for coming at the door when they're leaving, and somebody yelling at you because they didn't like the way you landed. So anyway, I would do that if I was you.
That's my whole goal. I want to be that pilot, or I want to be that pilot that stands there and gives the little kids the little toy airplanes and the stickers, and I feel like that's right up my alley.
Well, you are a people person. There's no doubt about it, and that is a part of that for sure. Yeah, and probably me saying that, I should have never said that about a commercial pilot being like a bus driver. That's horrible. I mean, every commercial pilot that listens to our podcast or watches it hates me now. So I am sorry that I did not mean for that to come out that way. But I want to ask you, Cory. I guess you've never flown. You've flown on big planes. You've never flown a big plane. I wonder what it would be like to fly a big plane like that. I wonder if it is an enjoyable thing. You got to be doing a lot of stuff while you're up front there, of course, but
it might get easier though.
It might, yeah.
You're not in some little twitchy thing, and you got a lot of assistance with, flying itself, basically.
I mean, Cory, I've seen those guys come in with a side wind and they're crabbing right in. They're sideways. And somehow they bring it in. Okay, I don't even know how they do it. So they're incredibly talented. There's no doubt about it. And have you had to face any of that kind of stuff yet?
Oh yeah, we did that this morning. It's funny that you bring that up. And to your point, that whole crabbing into landing on the runway is bizarre. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's all a feel, kind of like with anything. You learn how to adjust the airplane, and you can crab. There's also a maneuver called a slip. When you're coming down onto the runway and you're a little too fast, you slip the airplane. You kind of pitch it sideways and scrub off speed. And then last second you plop down on the runway straight. And at first, when I was flying, my instructor landed the airplane. He crabbed it in on my first flight, and I was like, "Whoa!" My heart kind of sunk a little bit. I was like, "I don't know if I can do this." Like, that's too many planes all at once, and the amount of control that you have to have with that. Now with having more hours into it, it's just like, that's just another Tuesday. But today we had some gusts up to, I believe it was 19 knots, and I got a little squirrely coming in, and I just slipped it in, did what I always do, and just came in, got it right down on the runway, and everything's good.
Good.
So does your plane have the type of landing gear that's got a nose wheel on the front and the two? It doesn't have a tail wheel, right?
Not a tail wheel. We have one underneath us in the front.
So do you bring it down on the two and then tip it down on the front one? Have you ever done, what is it, a 3-point landing where you've landed on all three wheels at the same time?
I have done a 3-point landing. I mean, I've jammed it into the ground where I'm coming in and I'm like, and plop it down there. I mean, the goal is to kind of hover above the runway and kind of stall the plane out and have it kind of land on the rear two wheels and then gently let the front wheel down is the goal. that doesn't always happen. And what I've learned throughout my time flying so far is not every landing is going to be perfect and the same. Always strive to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's probably like I tend to ask riders, and I may have asked you this one time, have you ever done a perfect lap? It's kind of like, have you ever had a perfect landing? I mean, maybe you can, but maybe you can always do something a little bit better, possibly. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate for that when it comes to racing, and I think that's why I love it so much. Is we're seeking perfection, and there will never be perfection. There's always someone, some way, somehow that can go faster. You can always do something better. You can always there's always something, and
Yeah.
that's what we're always out there trying to find. And I think that's what draws me to this.
Yeah. Do you have from this past year? Do you have any story from the world of the registration or the world of timing and scoring that you could tell us, whether to name names or not, but anything that came up, a customer came to a window or something in timing and scoring, anything that was funny, unusual, some kind of story that you can give us?
Oh, I got many stories for you guys, but I'll tell you what. When you guys come up to the window at registration, and I'm not sure if you guys have the same thing when you come to get your hard cards, like coming up, and I my experiences with Donnell have always been a little interesting because my dad has always registered me, or I want to say in my earlier years. My father did everything in such a weird way. He always made life so hard for poor Donnell and would have to call her. And now being on that side of things, it makes a lot more sense. And I mean, motorsports reg is simple if you know how to manipulate and use it, and if you're always spending time with it. But if you're not, if you're for the 10 rounds of the year, it's pretty difficult to learn and understand. And now being on the other side of things, like, or I want to say being on both sides of things, I understand the patience that is needed on our side, trying to figure it out, trying to find people, because not everything is just always so simple and so easy. This person wanted a hard card. Well, this person also gave them a hard card, but this hard card isn't the right hard card, and you need this, and just the whole 9 yards. And it's been fun. I mean, spending all day trying to get people what they need. Also being on the other side of things, like, all right, we're here for the races. Like, I need to get in now. Like, tire warmers need to go on. It's like, well, we gotta get you everything here first, and
You should have showed
there's
up
a
earlier.
process. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I do my best to just like, all right, I understand. Go do that. We gotta come back here, and we'll get you all squared away. Or we try our best to be as helpful as possible. But I like being up in timing and scoring. Like, I really enjoyed that because I was in the paddock.
Yeah.
Registration, you're at the track, but you're not at the track. It's like,
Right.
oh, they're like, oh, I hear a motorcycle go by. Oh, that's kind of cool. Like, there must be motorcycles going on or something. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Were you doing both, where you were doing registration at the beginning of the weekend and then you moved over to timing and scoring, or were you doing one or the other on a weekend?
New Jersey, I did both because I believe someone was unable to make it, or got sick throughout the weekend. So I kind of filled in, but I was supposed to be at registration all weekend. Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Mid-Ohio, I did timing all weekend, and then all the other tracks, I was just registration.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you, like I said, I remember you walking up, the front straight and doing something. I think you were running coax or something, or some kind of cabling, something with Jason Kingham, which is kind of interesting that you worked with Danelle Kingham and her husband, Jason Kingham.
Yeah, but I got both the Kinghams, and oh my gosh, they are so awesome. And I'm extremely thankful for all the help that they have, or all the opportunity that they've given me this year. And I mean, I learned a lot from both of them, anything from coax to motorsports reg to moving the start lights around, or the starting cameras around. And I learned so much this past year, and just on that side of things, I'm thankful, and I want to take that and and if anything else comes of it, then cool.
Okay, so in wrapping this up, if in a perfect world, when do we see you again doing what you want to do most?
In a perfect world, I want to be lining up at Daytona
Wow. Okay. In the 200.
and the 200. I haven't done the 200. I I am, I want to say, in probably just as good a shape as I was at my best. I learned a lot about my body throughout this process, and we're just getting started. And come March, I want to be ready to go.
Hmm.
Hey, I want to ask you about something, Cory. Isn't it, by the way, isn't it weird that here I am here in Ohio and it's getting so dark I didn't turn my light on, so you can tell I'm coming in out of the darkness here. But anyway, I apologize for that. I should have turned the light on. But I want to ask you about something. I wrote a story about the concept of practice and how stick and ball players they practice the day that they play. I mean, whether it's batting practice or shoot arounds or something. And some people misunderstood what I was getting at because you guys practice, but you don't practice every day. You don't practice on a track that you're going to be racing at. You might practice on a track, but the tracks are all different. So it's not like you're going to understand that. And for you, you haven't ridden in a while, but there's a lot of muscle memory with racers. And this idea, Josh Hayes has told me this, and I'm sure he's maybe mentioned this to you, Cory. I mean, it's the one form of sport in motorsports where you guys don't practice your craft all that often, really, or you're riding bicycles, or you're doing a turn track, or you're doing motocross. So, can you speak to that a little bit, just to kind of support that, or maybe not support it? Do you think you practice a lot? I mean, where are you with that?
I I would like to get more laps than I would normally coming into the season. I want to come in with a good solid baseline. I think the biggest thing with racing is having a good solid baseline and being confident, being able to click your laps off. And like, obviously, you want to have a good track to practice at. I was extremely spoiled growing up in California with having Thunderhill and Buttonwillow, which I think are arguably two of the best tracks to have in your backyard to set up a motorcycle and get a baseline set, because you'll never have a perfect motorcycle there. You can get it close, but you just have a good variety. Here, being in Missouri now, I don't know if I'll have the same tools, but I'm going to do everything I can off the track. I want to have my mental connection there. Obviously, I have a lot of good mountain bike trails here, and having my instinct down quick and being able to make decisions fast is a vital role here. And also something that we haven't touched on, my parents also moved out here and they got some land. I
Oh,
built a
Oh, I
turn
didn't know
track.
that.
how about you?
So
We haven't talked about them because you've been so far away from home, and your sister's married. Wow, they came out. They're out by you now. That's
they moved out
awesome.
here and I have a turn track. So something that's a little different in coming into this year is I've started putting a lot of laps in there, and
Perfect.
I've never been able to ride a motorcycle more than probably once a month, and now I go out there and ride multiple times a week. Obviously, we have a foot of snow on the ground right now,
Right,
but
right.
as soon as that burns off and the weather's nice enough, you better know that I'll be out there putting in work, and that to me translates more than anything. And for me, it's more beneficial than possibly putting laps in on a road race track, because there's only you only have so many opportunities to put in full speed laps in anger, and like motorcycle has to be perfect. You always have to have new tires on it to improve, and with resources that's not always there. So if there's a way I can get just as good or if not better, I'll go train on the turn track and we'll show up to MotoAmerica ready to go.
Right, right. I mean, you think about a basketball player, though. They go and they play at a court where it's a 10-foot basket wherever they go, same distance from the top of the key. The dimensions of what they're going to are the same. The dimensions of what you're competing on are always different. You mentioned about Daytona that you haven't gone there. Well, you're not going to be able to practice at Daytona until you actually go there and you have a couple of sessions. but you guys get up to speed on it nonetheless. I mean, I'm just saying it's an incredible talent to be able to do that. You know, it's really sets motorcycle road racers apart, I feel, for sure. But you know, these associated skills that you have, you got to do anything you can to mimic, you know, what you're going to do out on a track, and balance and all that kind of stuff, right? And your core strength and training and all that. So it makes a lot of sense. But I hope you get to Daytona. My gosh, that would be so cool. I mean, we'd love to see you back there.
For sure. I mean, I did a couple laps around there. Daytona, I have some unfinished business with Daytona. The only time I've been there, I raced in Twins Cup, and we had a couple mechanical issues, and I wasn't able to complete some races there. And I felt like we had a pretty strong package, and I want to come back and give it another shot.
All
Well,
right. Well,
as Paul said, you're still young enough. So
and so let's wrap this up. But Cory, it was nice talking to you again, and it really makes me happy that you're doing as well as you are. And if we see you at Daytona, that's just going to be an extra bonus. But if that happens down the road a little bit farther, then we'll still look forward to seeing you out there.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. You take care and say hi to the family for us.
yeah, say
Will
hi.
do.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys later.
All right. Hey, Cory, real quick, if you're not good, will you be at Daytona, whether you race there or not? Are you going to be doing registration or timing and scoring, or, you know?
And nothing's locked in yet. I possibly will be coming to do some registration, with it being the first round. Everyone needs their hard cards, and
yeah, it's crazy.
I know a thing or two now.
Yeah.
So if I can help, cool. But I believe Hannah's going for sure. So
Yeah,
going to a motorcycle track doesn't sound too bad.
No.
Right. Say hi to her for us too. She's great.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
guys. Thank you.
See you guys. Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.